Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I've been practicing law for 40 years. I've been teaching it for 25. And for the first time in my professional life, the Supreme Court is originalist. They actually care about the original understanding of the Constitution and its amendments. And that is because of my next guest, Senate GOP leader Mitch McConnell from the great state of Kentucky. Good morning, Mr. Leader. Great to have you back.
Good morning, Hugh. Glad to be with you.
I want to talk about your Washington Post column this week and how it was received. You made the argument, I think successfully, that only 5% of the decisions of the court in the last term were 5-4, only 9% were 6-3. I think you upset a lot of people on the left by making the argument that the court is actually not political.
Yeah, apparently because Bruce Marcus came back the next day and tried to destroy my argument, which she was unable to do. What they really don't like is this is a Supreme Court that respects the Constitution and expects the executive branch only to carry out positions that Congress has authorized. And, most of the left thought of the Supreme Court as sort of an extra legislative body that would help them get whatever they couldn't get through the people's elected representatives. So that's what's up here.
Mr. Leader, over the last 2 years, I've called it the end of the Roe era, because the Roe-Bakke era. Beginning in 1973, the court became very political and would often reach decisions out of thin air. I think that's over. Do you think we've entered a new era of Supreme Court jurisprudence generally?
No.
Okay, tell me where I'm wrong, because I see originalism.
No. I think your column is right on the mark. In every respect. And we do have a different Supreme Court, but it's one that doesn't operate outside the Constitution or clearly laws passed by elected representatives.
That is, I think their biggest push is actually going to dismantle the administrative state. And I saw Ruth Marcus arguing that's bad, but I actually think that's consistent with the Constitution and the Article 1 authority. Have you got members running around who are afraid of the major questions doctrine because they're going to have to do their work?
No, I don't have any. And I think the major questions doctrine makes a lot of sense. And that was on full display in the student loan issue, where they used a tiny little adjustment made during the pandemic to forgive hundreds of billions of dollars in student loans by people who can afford to pay them back.
Justice Barrett wrote a concurrence there, which I think is as important as the opinion in West Virginia versus EPA last year. So, Mr. Leader, having put all that into the record on the radio, a week from today, Senators Durbin and Whitehouse are pushing what I view as an unconstitutional bill, an attempt to regulate the Supreme Court, which is an independent branch. Does that bill have any prayer of making it into law?
No. Every single Republican on the Judiciary Committee is opposed to it. The Chief Justice can take care of whatever standards the Supreme Court needs to adhere to. Congress does not have the legal authority to dictate to the Supreme Court how they should handle these matters.
That's it. That you can impeach. That's the only thing the Congress can do about a justice. Now, Mr. Leader, we all have opinions, though. There have been 3 controversies in the last 2 months. A blown-up controversy about Justice Thomas and Harlan Crow. We've got a blown-up controversy about Justice Alito on a fishing trip 15 years ago. And then we have Justice Sotomayor shaking down $3.7 million in book royalties from colleges and universities. Of those 3, do any of them concern you?
No. The court, many of the liberals on the court have also accepted gifts, and it's just an effort to try to target this new Supreme Court. If they can't get their way on the merits, they go after the court itself. Chuck Schumer, for example, earlier went over to the Supreme Court and called out 2 of the members by name and said they'd pay a price if they ruled a certain way. When they can't get their way before the court, they simply try to destroy the reputation of the court. And this is the same people who want to all of a sudden have term limits for Supreme Court justices or age requirements. They'll do anything to try to destroy the court, and they've had some success in driving down the approval rating of the Supreme Court.
They have, but I wonder, is there any change to their proposed law after the Justice Sotomayor story came out? Because when they were working on the Alito and Thomas stories, they had kind of an open field. All of a sudden, they're going to run over Justice Sotomayor with any rule they come up with, because that's a pretty bad story from AP. It's not from ProPublica, but AP actually has a better reputation for being at least less partisan than ProPublica. What do you think? Are they going to draw back their fangs a little bit after that got out in the middle of the road?
Well, I don't know. Durbin, who's the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, says they'll take this bill up next week, so we'll find out, at least in committee, who votes how. But you're right. Sotomayor and the liberals on the Supreme Court have also accepted gifts, and these articles, of course, downplay that and play up Justice Thomas.
Now, you warned your old colleague, now gone, Harry Reid, not to break the filibuster, but he did. I think there's a warning here. They got to know about these attempts to delegitimize the court. Is they're going to end up delegitimizing the liberal justices? Do they have any concern over that?
You would think so. I think we'll know a lot more about whether they're really going to dig in on this if Schumer were to try to put it on the floor. That would be an indication they view this as a major matter.
The attempt to delegitimize the court is coming from Democrats. There are a few vulnerable Democrats out there. John Tester, Sherrod Brown. I can think of a couple of more. Are any of them going to be forced to vote on this? Because it does not work with the public. Nobody wants to go after the court and the public except the hard left.
Well, that'll be up to Schumer to decide whether he wants. That's the advantage of being the majority leader. I've been the majority leader, and I've been the minority leader. Majority's better. And it'll be up to Schumer to decide whether to try to turn this into a major issue or just another item that goes nowhere.
Do you think John Tester wants to vote on a bill about the Supreme Court?
I don't think so. So you're right. They've got three incumbents, likely in very hard races: Tester, Sherrod Brown, and Joe Manchin. And my guess is they'd probably rather not deal with this.
Yeah, Senator Manchin is dead senator walking in terms of electoral reability, because Justice is going to win there. Is he going to run for re-election, do you think?
Is he what?
Going to run for re-election, Joe Manchin?
We don't know. We don't know. He has a very formidable opponent in the governor of West Virginia, Governor Justice, and it's not clear yet what Senator Manchin's going to do.
John Tester is online saying you, Mitch McConnell, handpicked his opponent in Montana. I don't believe that, but I hope you're supporting him because he looks pretty good.
No, that's ridiculous. The candidate he's talking about is supported by the governor of Montana and the other senator from Montana. They're the ones who recruited this candidate.
So, Leader McConnell, I want to close by asking you about a surprise I had last time I was up in the Senate talking to a bunch of Republican senators. The number one discussion was on name, image, and likeness. I was kind of blown away by this because Ohio State's got quite an advantage, and I'm not willing to have the Senate legislate in that area. But does this come up a lot? And I know you're a Louisville Cardinal fan, and I know I listened to the ACC rundown yesterday on Buckeye Talk, and they're not supposed to win the conference this year. But do you think there is a federal role in name, image, and likeness?
Well, I think the colleges would like us to step in. The problem is if they don't come behind a particular proposal, we'll screw it up going through the legislative process. So what I've said to them repeatedly is before we can act, we have to know what you want. And it's a complicated subject. The Supreme Court decided 9-0. The way college athletics were being handled was a violation of antitrust laws. So there's no substitute for us acting legislatively. And it's a pretty big mess right now.
It is. What is Kentucky doing about it? I know you're close to the Cardinals. I know you care about University of Kentucky, all the schools in Kentucky. What's the situation in Kentucky? Can they compete against, for example, Ohio State to the north?
Yeah, they can. Each of the states are trying to act independently. Some states have passed legislation, some haven't. The biggest change, of course, is portal transfers be done immediately without sitting out, and the ability to earn money, the NIL area. So it's very complicated. We have a patchwork of state laws across the country that have done different things. They probably do need a federal solution, but we need them to come behind something and give us a recommendation as to what most colleges, I think, would work.
This is where I think Charlie Baker ought to come up. Let me close with the NDAA, Senator. There are some House Republicans who want to cut off aid to Ukraine. That would be a disaster. I think it's a handful. Do you expect the NDAA to get done, and do you expect continued aid to Ukraine to flow?
Yeah, we need the NDAA. The debt ceiling budget deal is not adequate for defense. It's important to win in Ukraine. I think it's the most important challenge in the whole world right now, and we can't afford to let the Russians win it.
Amen to that. Senator McConnell, thank you for joining me. Good piece in the Washington Post. Thank you.